Have you ever had a brilliant idea, a adduction, a business plan, a simple promise to yourself that you just couldn't finish? Maybe you're working on something right now, and you know it's 90% complete, but that final 10% feels impossible. You call yourself a perfectionist, but the truth is, you're not finishing because you're actually terrified of what happens after it's done. What if you put your best work out there and it still isn't perfect? What if it gets judged? You are not alone. Today's story is for every single person who has ever abandoned their dream right at the finish line. It's about a man who was the most skilled artist in his city, yet his life was filled with nothing but unfinished work. Dozens of half-finished statues filled his workshop, each one flawless and incomplete. He was the most talented sculptor in the ancient city of Oriel, known for its pristine marble and demanding, unforgiving artisans. Yet the greatest sculptor in the city was perpetually empty. His name was Elias, and he was paralyzed not by lack of skill, but by an internal enemy, the relentless, crushing pursuit of perfection. What if the thing stopping you from finishing your work wasn't failure, but perfection itself? In Oriel, one tiny mistake on a carved pillar could lead to a lifetime of scorn. Consequently, Elias, 28 years old, had never actually finished a single piece of work. His initial sketches were breathtaking, his first cuts into the stone clean and confident. But as he neared completion, when only the final, delicate detailing remained, a crippling fear would grip him. He would see an inevitable tiny flaw, a microscopic imperfection that no client would ever notice, but which to Elias screamed, "Failure!" In that moment of panic, he would abandon the project, leaving the exquisite, nearly finished sculpture draped in dusty cloth in the corner of his workshop. He had dozens of these veiled statues, a cemetery of almost greatness. The contrast between his dazzling potential and his empty order book was a bitter joke in Oriel. His peers called him the man who couldn't finish behind his back. This constant self-critique, this agonizing internal argument over the meaning of perfect, wore him down to exhaustion. He slept poorly, ate quickly, and had long forgotten the sheer joy that first drew him to the chisel. He was, in the simplest English, stuck. One particularly gray morning, after smashing a beautiful marble bust that was 99% complete, Elias felt a desperate need for change. He realized he wasn't afraid of failing. He was afraid of finishing and finding it lacking. His life had become a monument to avoidance. He remembered an old folk tale about a sculptor who lived high in the desolate coastal cliffs, a hermit rumored to carve masterpieces that lasted for generations, yet who never sold his art. He was simply known as the Seeker, driven by the intense desire to understand how someone could find peace in creation without the validation of success. Elias set off. The long, arduous trek out of Oriel took him only a week, but it felt like a lifetime. He passed through landscapes that felt deliberately imperfect, uneven stone paths, trees bent by the wild wind, and waves that crashed with uncontrolled, beautiful violence. These natural imperfections seemed to mock his rigid worldview, whispering a quiet challenge. He finally located the Seeker's dwelling, a small stone hut perched precariously on a cliff edge. The hut itself was unfinished. One wall seemed deliberately rough-hewn, contrasting sharply with the smooth stone floor. Inside, the old man, whose hands were scarred but steady, was working on a large piece of driftwood. It wasn't smooth like marble. It was full of knots, splits, and holes. Yet the seeker handled it with profound respect. Elias bowed deeply and, in a rush of vulnerability, poured out his story, his words tumbling out like the ocean waves below. "Master," he pleaded, his voice cracking, "I have the skill, but I lack the courage. My fear of making a mistake, of being imperfect, stops me from finishing. How do you create such great work without seeking perfection?" The seeker stopped carving. He slowly laid the driftwood on the floor, the sound muffled by the quiet air. He fixed his calm gaze on Elias and smiled. He spoke simply, choosing each English word with deliberate weight. "Ah, the prison of perfect. You confuse creation with calculation, my son. The flaw," the seeker said softly, "is not a mistake." He looked Elias directly in the eyes. "It's the signature of your human journey." Elias was stunned into silence. He had spent his entire life trying to erase the signature, to pretend the human hand was a machine. The seeker then gave Elias a task, a challenge designed to test his mind, not his muscles. He handed Elias a small, beautiful river stone, perfectly smooth from years of water current, and a piece of coarse sandpaper. "For the next 3 days," the seeker instructed, his voice low, "I want you to spend 2 hours each morning trying to sand this stone perfectly smooth. Every minute you must ask yourself, is this perfect?" Elias, confused but desperate, began the task. For 3 days he rubbed and rubbed. The stone was already smooth, but the act of trying to make it perfectly smooth was maddening. He focused on every microscopic ridge, every tiny shadow. At the end of the 3rd day, the stone felt exactly the same. He was exhausted. His fingers were raw. He had chased an illusion and felt no closer to peace or completion. He had failed the task of perfection. He returned the sandpaper and the stone to the seeker, who received them with a small, knowing nod. "Now for the final task," the old man said, his voice dropping to an almost conversational murmur. "I want you to take that very same stone, but this time, I want you to carve into it a single, deliberate, tiny scratch, a mark that is imperfect. You must spend 1 hour making that one scratch. Do not fear it. Do not try to fix it. Just make your mark." Elias hesitated. His entire body instinctively resisted the idea of deliberately introducing a flaw, the very thing he had spent his life avoiding. But with the seeker's patient encouragement, he took a tiny, sharp tool. His hand trembled. He looked at the perfect stone and then at the tool. This was the moment of transformation. Slowly, reluctantly, he pressed the tool into the surface and made a minuscule, uneven line. A flaw. It was visible. It was his. He stopped carving and held the stone in his palm. His breath, which had been tight in his chest for years, suddenly felt deep and steady. The moment the flaw was accepted, the internal battle for perfection ended. There was no internal screaming, no anxiety, just a profound, unexpected stillness. The seeker took the stone, turning it over in his hand. "See, Elias? The first task was about chasing an ideal, a perfect that does not exist in the world of human hands. It brought you exhaustion and failure. The second task was about acceptance, accepting the flaw as a part of the whole. When you made that one deliberate scratch, your mind was finally free. You stopped comparing your work to a fantasy and started embracing it as a reality. The fear of failure is simply the fear of being seen as less than perfect. But true art, true achievement, is always imperfect because it is always finished. The old man smiled. Go back to Oriel. Finish one of your pieces. Leave the flaw, the trace of your human hand, right there. Do not hide it. It is your proof that you showed up, that you risked, and that you finished. Elias felt a rush of energy, a sudden, powerful realization. He finally understood that the stacks of unfinished work in his shop were not monuments to skill, but monuments to fear. The seeker hadn't given him a new skill. He had given him permission to be human. The setting sun cast a golden hue over the rough-hewn hut and the beautiful, wild ocean. Birds cried overhead, their flight wonderfully, naturally imperfect. Elias bowed low, truly understanding the master's lesson. He started the long walk home. Now the thought of his unfinished statues no longer filled him with dread, but with purpose. He was going back to finish. He was going back to create. He was going back to accept the powerful, essential beauty of the imperfect. And Elias did go back. He finished the first statue he touched, deliberately leaving a tiny, human imperfection in the curl of the hair. He sold it immediately, and he never again left a piece unfinished. He became known not as the man who couldn't finish, but as the master of the human touch. If you've ever abandoned something because it wasn't perfect, finish it. And if this story helped you breathe a little easier, like it, share it, and stay with us for more stories that bring peace and understanding to your journey. Thank you for staying with us. Until the next lesson, stay brave and remember, finish it.